Good morning. Good morning, friends, colleagues, juniors, seniors, peers, everybody. Good morning and a happy new year. Today's topic of discussion will be on human resource management and audit. It's a new topic, rarely discussed at the academic level or in the practice level. But if finance can be audited, why can't human resource management be? That's my question. I've made an attempt, and it's for my colleagues to actually take it further. I'm just showing the beginning. So I think it is significant. It doesn't have to be formal. I'm not asking my colleagues, friends to make a formal assessment. No, just to review our activities in order to make progression. So let's start, my friends. Let's start. The human resource management audit is the systematic review of the current practice of policies, procedures, and systems related to people management. Review means to assess something with the aim to make improvements, if necessary, at the formal or informal level with the support of the top management. I have to repeat this. We need the support of the top management. It's just a review of the current state of affairs of human resource management within an organization at a certain time. That's all. And it is the aim of this audit is to actually initiate improvements in the people practice of any enterprise with the support and endorsement of the top management. In order to understand the effectiveness of human resource management, there must be elements of measurement from which the top management should be able to establish whether human resource management is on track or off track. That's all. And remember, within a specific frame of time. The HRM audit comprises of three aspects. Remember, the first aspect is systems audit. Here, I'm talking about reviewing the documents, records of the human resource management department. Here, basically, systems audit is about the paper flow, documents, and the system in place. The next is operations audit. Here I'm talking about the sequence of activities in the human resource management at any specific time. Basically, we are talking about the sequence of activities that also needs to be audited. We have the documents. Now I'm using the documents in the real. How I'm using the documents is in relation to motivation, satisfaction, justice, and overall happiness of the employees. Here I'm talking about the perception of the stakeholders in relation to the happiness of the organization. By the way, when I use the word perception, it means I'm using the senses to understand the morale of the organization. What senses am I talking about? Senses can be five types. For example, seeing, to hear, feel, taste, smell. All these are all these are actually senses. To see, to hear, to feel, to taste, to smell. These are very significant. To feel, to taste, to smell. These are very significant, very significant senses we use. And that's how we can gather, to some extent, whether we are happy or not to be in an organization. Here I'm talking about the perception of the employees and the stakeholders. This is what I mean by climate audit. In order to progress further, I'll take into consideration the present HRM state, aspirational HRM state, where I want to go, and what are the blockages. That is the core function of an audit, the blockages. Okay, my friends, let's start the audit. But first of all, I must have an audit team. The audit team must be approved and led by a senior HRM practitioner. We must have a formal checklist, and that's what I'm going to talk about. This audit that I'm talking about may be a semi-formal type of audit. I repeat, a semi-type of formal audit. In order to make any further progress in audit, I need to know the company's vision or the business objectives or the corporate objectives of the organization. I must have in place documents, papers, some basic facts. Okay, so let me start the audit. This is just an example. Practitioners can go even further, add some more items according to significance, or eliminate some of the points I'm going to discuss. Okay, my friends, let's start. I've divided HRM audit into three parts: employee resourcing, employee development, employee relations. I repeat, employee resourcing, employee development, employee relations. So I'll start with employee resourcing. So my first topic will be I'll be auditing the recruitment and selection. Is there a written recruitment and selection policy that is signed, dated, and available? That's my first question. Is there a written recruitment and selection policy that is signed, dated, and available? Who is the custodian of this policy? Who keeps this policy? How is a vacant position identified? And who raises the requisition? Who authorizes the requisition? Is there in place a job description, person specification for each role? These are my audit questions. Is there in place a job description, person specification for each role? In order to understand the difference between job description and person specification, one will have to have a good and sound knowledge of human resource management. Based in a nutshell, job description is about the job, person specification is about the specific features of a person that will help to accomplish the role. How are employees recruited? Here I'm talking about the flow chart of recruitment and selection. It's very important to have in place a flow chart of a recruitment and selection within an organization. Are internal boards used to advertise from internally at the initial stage of recruitment? Is there a written policy related to interviews and interviewers? Are all new employees given a terms and conditions of employment with an ID and service book according to the labor law of the country? Are all new recruits inducted formally within the organization? Are all personal files updated with well documented and stored, and where the documents are stored, and these are confidential documents? Remember the word. Are all personal files updated? These personal files must be also stored and are also confidential. Do all personal files contain photo, identifiable evidence of experience, and the person references of the employee? Are exit interviews held? These are important questions. Exit interviews is difficult, but at least being aware that this may happen, this is an HRM initiative to have exit interviews if possible. Who monitors the recruitment and selection procedures? Are handbooks given to all new recruits with the signature of acknowledgement? Handbooks is very important. Are all the new recruits given handbooks? Leaving is not only the issue, it must be also acknowledged by the receiver for legal issues. Constituent elements of the HRM report given to the management. This is also very important. How and when are the HRM reports given to the top management? We must have sorry we must have in place a labor turnover statistics, leave statistics. Is there a leave and holiday policy and form available? I mentioned the word or the concept labor turnover statistics. It's important. The top management would like to know how many people are leaving the organization within a specific time. It has many implications. Is there a promotion policy? Is there a transfer policy? What about performance appraisals? How is performance appraisal done? Is there any succession plan in place? Does the enterprise have a talent management initiative? Is there in place a culture of the enterprise which is monitored by the HRM, etc.? Now about employee development. Is there employee development means employee learning initiated by the HRM. It must be conducted. Learning is important, and it's for the top management to realize that there is nothing much to offer than learning. We must learn, which must be monitored and appreciated at the management. So, is there an employee development training policy? That's my first question. Is there in place a system to identify and plan training interventions? Traditionally, it's done through performance appraisals. It can also be done by observations. I'm observing that there is a gap. By understanding the legal framework, a new law has come. Employees need to be trained related to the law. It can happen. How is employee learning defined by the enterprise? It's very important. Learning defined. What about employee learning perception of employees? How do people feel about learning? Is it well understood? Or is it just a rhetoric? How people feel about learning and development. That's my issue. After establishing the needs and gaps, and also having a well-defined learning strategy. Learning is well-defined. Now we have to decide whether the training can be done internally or externally. This depends on whether I have the resources or not. If I don't have the resources, I'll have to outsource the training function to another organization. And if I have the resources, venue, trainers, I can do it myself. Next is next is about contents of the training. Also depends on having in place a qualified trainer, and that depends on the contents of the training. What will be trained? For example, if I'm talking about, I don't know, customer care. Take, for example, customer care. From observation, I've found that customer care is not being handled properly. I can initiate a workshop of 3 days. It can be done internally if the company has the expertise. 3 days workshop or 4 days workshop approved by the top management, for which there might be a separate budget, and we can go forward with the plan. But first of all, I'll have to have in place the learning contents. What I'm going to talk about to the learners. And if it's about customer focus, customer care, I'll have to talk about customer perception, types of customers, customer segmentation, and then I'll be talking about how to serve the customers. That's about customer care. Remember, we are in a very customer centric age. If it's done internally, selecting the venue, the criteria of success, selecting the trainer, establishing the quality of learners. How many learners will there be? Who are they? I have also to take into consideration the consent of the managers, whether they can release the learners or not within a time. I'll have to talk to my managers, find out whether they can release certain amount of employees just for 3 days or 4 days. It depends on what I'm going to talk about. If it's quality, if it's culture, it might take 2 or 3 days. It depends. It depends. But I'll have to involve the managers. Here, HRM, we are there to support the managers. And I need their consent. I need them to understand that learning is important, learning is significant. And also, I'll also have to take into account the feedback of the learners from the learning experience. Next is about, my next point will be about employee relations. Employee relations means the relationship between employees. That also needs to be audited or understood or reviewed. Are all employees given a letter of appointment? Are all employees given a copy of the company handbook, which contains all the important policies and procedures, and the handbook is acknowledged by the employee? An induction checklist, holiday request forms available, disciplinary policy, grievance policy, performance appraisals, performance improvement plan, records of internal and interdepartmental meetings, risk assessments, health and safety is very, very important. Harassment and anti-discriminatory policies do we have in place? How is how is management style monitored is also very important. How is fair treatment monitored? What are the current HRM initiatives? What is the overall culture of the organization? How are disagreements resolved within the organization? There can be disagreements. It's not something unusual. But how are disagreements resolved? That's my that's my issue about it. By issue about it. By disagreements, I mean just simple disagreements or conflict or whatever you say. How are they actually dealt with? We have in place a grievance policy. That is very important. Does the company or enterprise have in place concepts like picnics, outings just for fun, maybe a cultural event, employees of the year, sports events, etc.? All these issues actually are motivating. Any customer any customer issue must be dealt with, and how it is being dealt with within the system. Are HRM policies complying with the labor law? Human rights is also very important. Human rights of all must be respected. By the way, what is human rights? Human rights is about dignity, respect, fairness, and we can trace human rights movement from the Universal Declaration of Human Rights 1948. In a nutshell, human rights include in a nutshell, human rights include freedom to voice and movement. I can move wherever I want. I can express myself, not to be discriminated, safe working environment, no forced labor, no slavery, no child labor, just remuneration, freedom of association, right to privacy, right to family life, right to leisure and rest and period, and so on. These days, human rights is a big issue. HRM practitioners, please understand, human rights is nowadays a big, big issue. And who monitors the human rights? HR will have to do it. But we'll have to have specialist knowledge on human resources and human rights. Good if he or she comes from a legal background or has been trained. The core aim of HRM audit is to create a congenial culture where all the stakeholders can work together to achieve success in the market by minimizing unproductive activities and focusing on in a very healthy competitive environment. On in a very healthy competitive environment. And by the way, my friends, When I'm talking about HRM audit, we have to start from certain facts. The first fact the first fact will be employee strength of the organization. How many employees do we have? Divide the employees into permanent and non-permanent. But how many do we have? The total employee strength before I start any audit. How many departments? How many managers by name? The organization structure we need to know also. Before doing the audit, we need to have knowledge of the organization structure, location of officers, gender, managerial levels, year of establishment, labor turnover, absenteeism, leave statistic, six statistics. Disciplinary and grievance issues, any legal issues, that also needs to be taken into consideration before any audit or review. Customer satisfaction, to some extent, I'll also try to understand whether customers are happy with our product and services or not. My friends, there might be other points depending on the product and services, but any omissions that are made is non intentional. Have a nice day. Have a nice day and a pleasant day. Stay well and stay calm wherever you are. Meet you all very, very soon. Take care, my friends. Bye bye.